It's good to be back live on a Sunday night after a 49ers victory. Rod, the Niners beat the Falcons 20-10. I don't think that anybody would put this game on a list of the greatest games in Sunday night football history, but the Niners were effective in doing what they love to do, which is run the football. And I thought the defense, I think we got a glimpse of what Robert Saleh brings back to this team on a week in which you lose your defensive anchor after you had just previously lost your leading pass rusher. He dialed up some stuff, and they weren't the same blitzes that we saw last week. That is for sure. What was your big takeaway after watching this game Sunday night?
Well, I mean, they showed up and did pardon me, did exactly what they needed to do. I had been saying all week, what I didn't know is was the team that beat the Bills last week going to show up, or the team that lost by 30 to the Panthers um 3 weeks ago going to show up. And obviously it was a combination of both. They didn't look terrible, but um they were, I think they were just what the doctor ordered on a Sunday night at Levi. They were, that defense was perfect for us, and we were able to get the run game going. And who knows? I mean, that is the kind of thing that builds momentum. And that's a good thing. It was good to see, um to not to be stuck at 3 yards a carry, like we've
Yeah.
been the rest of the year. And again, I'm not going to even focus on the opponent. It was the Niners, got some things going and found some stuff. And then, like you say, with you know, maybe I had said this when I posted this on Facebook yesterday, that if Robert Saleh makes chicken salad against this offense, then maybe I will have to rethink my um Jims and Joes um are greater than X's and O's, which is ridiculous because obviously the players matter more so than it doesn't matter how good you scheme it up. If the guys can't execute it, it doesn't matter. But we had guys step up today. um, Tatum Bethune, Fred who? No, obviously that's ridiculous. But he played well. He played really well, and that was good to see. A lot of those guys made plays, and I think, like you said, o- in a way that I don't think I fully realized last year. Because look, Nick Sorensen wasn't the greatest coordinator, obviously. But I'm always frustrated when people go directly to the coordinators, because
Mhm.
ultimately there were a whole lot of missed tackles last year. There was a whole lot of coverage blows. There were a lot of things that you could blame the players for your first takeaway to be the coordinator. I think it's kind of a cop out. But clearly this year, in this game and on several occasions, you see what the value of having a I'm not going to say great yet, because really, that I am a hard grader on that type of thing, on great. But he is a very good coordinator and one of the best in the league for sure. And it's in games like this, and it was in, we've seen it several times this year in big moments where he is able to dial something up that
Mhm.
works. And then what I have never really given much credence to, but I'm seeing here, is it when those guys believe in you, there's an alchemy that happens that I'm not super comfortable with, because you really can't measure it, but I, I can't deny it.
Yeah.
Um, he makes these dudes believe. They believe what it is he's saying, and there is a value to that, just because you can't quantify it doesn't make it not real.
I I sort of thought about this. I was like, okay, what is the difference from this game and the Bucks game defensively? Well, for one, obviously there's an emotional toll that the players have when you lose a player in that gruesome of an injury like Fred Warner. Secondly, Baker Mayfield can make plays. Sometimes he can make something out of nothing. A little bit more of a veteran QB. And it seemed clear to me that Saleh figured that as good as Penix may be in the future, there were looks that they could give Penix to kind of confuse him. And you can go back to that second drive where Penix looked like the second coming of Tua. It was like first read, boom, first read, boom. And he's just moving the ball down the field. And when you have Bijan, that's almost like a cheat code for your offense. And then after that, it did seem like more of his drops were having to go to a secondary or a third receiver. And then so I mean, without looking at the tape like I'm sure you will this week, I couldn't really tell what they were doing differently, but it was clear that they were trying to at least take away what Penix saw as the first option and make him do something else. And then by then, hoping that the pocket would crush on him a little bit, and that's kind of what happened in the fourth quarter. In that last drive is they just were like, okay, we could, if we just bring pressure, and then they started blitzing a little bit, this guy is going to try and get rid of the ball very quickly, and we'll have that stuff locked up. So I thought it was really interesting just to watch from the perspective of how the game flows. Because if you go back to that second drive, you're watching Penix and Collinsworth and Tirico are just, they're like, oh my gosh, this guy looks fantastic. But then after that, it was not as fantastic for him, and I have to think that that was something of Saleh and what they wanted to do with him. And then so then I looked and I was like, okay, well, who are the next quarterbacks that they play? Who do they think can beat them? Kind of like Baker beat them. Well, it's CJ Stroud, it is Jackson Dart, and then it is Stafford, of course. They're going to have to do some stuff. They're gonna have to stop the running game in that game for sure. And then you go back to Kyler or whether it's going to be Jacoby Brissett. But one of the benefits of playing this last place schedule is they're also playing against a lot of really bad QBs or really young QBs. And so that may be beneficial to Saleh and how aggressive they want to be, or how um some of the disguised blitzes, Chase Lucas coming off the corner, how sneaky they could be with that stuff. But I just thought it was a fantastic game plan, whatever the game plan was. I hope that they talk about it tonight or tomorrow. But it also may bode well for the next few weeks, because until they face Stafford, they're not really facing like a top 5 kind of quarterback. So I'll be interested to see in how they game plan for the next few weeks.
It will definitely be interesting because you clearly would not have had um that kind of blitz heavy um game plan. You would not have planned for that, because that's just not who or what he is. Not interesting that, Jeff Ulbrich has kind of done the same thing on that side. He's just, in lieu of having a bona fide pass rusher, he's just, what we're gonna do is we're just gonna blitz half the time. And that's just, how we're going to generate pass rush. And maybe that's where we're at, is that that's what it's going to have to be. Um, and then, as like you say, then when you talk about like the difference between Baker and Penix is, Baker's been in the league 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are going to be, you're going to be limited. And we all know that you're kind of limited in terms of when you're blitzing a veteran
Yeah.
who knows the answers. It's not as simple as, and again, Baker is playing. I think we talked about this last year. He's playing so confidently that
Mm-hmm.
he's not he's not gonna be flustered by your pressure. He knows the answers, and he's seen it. And it's going to be the same thing with Stafford. There's not going to be a blitz that Salah's going to be able to come up with that's going to that Matthew Stafford hasn't seen, you know, 100 times and knows the answers. Now, knowing the answers doesn't necessarily mean you always pass the test, but it kind of, I would imagine, as a defensive play caller, you're a little bit more leery of and or cognizant of what that blitz might open up for him. Like I was watching the Chiefs game, um, and they were talking about that with Patrick Mahomes. You have to be very careful
Yeah.
about, because anytime you blitz him, you are, just by the nature of the numbers, you are creating an opening, and
Yeah.
he's the kind of guy that finds that opening more times than not. So that's why teams rarely blitz him. That's why his numbers are so good against the blitz, because he doesn't see it very often, because teams have just given up on, that's not going to work. So again, it's going to be interesting, like you say, when we're playing against CJ Stroud, and who was after that?
Jackson Dart, and then
Oh yeah,
you go
who
Stafford, and then the Cardinals, whomever the Cardinals are starting.
we don't
Probably
want to
Murray will be ready by then.
we don't want to jump too far ahead, but Jackson Dart presents, his own set of problems that we've long faced, even back to the Harbaugh days,
You'll
with
have
his
to be a little,
mobility.
yeah, you'll have to be a little sneakier with him because he is
Yeah,
actually looking to run, um,
yeah.
and he
He's gonna
will.
run out the blitz.
Yes, exactly.
He's not looking for answers in terms of finding receivers. He's looking for he's looking for the back door,
Yeah.
which creates its own set of problems, which again, it's weird that that's something we've never really found an answer to. That's just always been something that has been a card. And I guess it's not something that everybody deals with it, to a certain extent, but I don't know why my institutional knowledge has me shell shocked about mobile quarterbacks,
Yeah.
because I just feel like we have just been burned so often. I think we've talked about it on past shows. It's like I have memories of Russell Wilson that are just seared into my memory, where we defense things perfectly,
Yep.
and then it's like a 15-yard scramble, and it's like, what happened? What? So yeah, but yeah, like you say, that we have a schedule that, if we're not going to get if we're not going to trade in the next 3 weeks, then maybe that is just what the answer is. And is Solid just calling great blitzes, um trying to gin up pass rush in that way.
Shout out to Robert Ramos, who we haven't heard from a lot this year, but he was at the game. He actually sent me a clip of CMC's second touchdown, which I put up as a short on the BSPN YouTube. And then immediately someone who's not a 49er fan got mad because I didn't mention that the lineman helped him get across the goal line. But yeah, shout out to Robert. Glad you're hanging out, man. It looks like you had a blast. Like night games are so fun at that stadium. So here's another thing
Getting
that
home,
has.
not so much, but the game itself is great.
Yes, yes. You have to plan ahead to get home. It's not easy. Uh, Another thing I was
Wow.
thinking about was it was very clear. I mean, obviously, when you play the Falcons, you go, okay, first and foremost, Bijan. Like he's the man. And
So
I thought
good.
they did a good job with
Yeah.
him running the football. He's going to get his catching the football just because he gets so many touches and he's so talented. He's going to, so you're not going to bottle him up. But I thought they did a pretty good job. And I was kind of wondering
Absolutely.
because the Falcons could have done something similar, I thought, which is, and maybe this is just about Kittle, but sell out for McCaffrey and then maybe force Mac and this very challenged receiver crew at this point to beat you, because that's what the Niners did. They're like, okay, we're gonna ball out, stop Bijan, and Penix may make a play or two because of that, but we trust that if we stop Bijan and Penix is third and long more times than their offensive coordinator wants him to be, it's going to be up to him to make a play. And we would rather have him make a play than have Bijan make those plays. And I kind of thought about it from the perspective of the Falcons. And maybe CMC was just so great tonight. And maybe having George there was just kind of put everything in the right place, because it was like almost like every time CMC touched the ball on a run, you were like, okay, this is 5 or more. And it had to be maddening for Falcons fans who knew CMC's getting the ball on a running play 2 out of the 4 downs no matter what, and they just could not slow him down. And if you watch
Okay.
Mac's entire game, like you look at Mac's numbers, they're not great. He had a couple of good third down throws, but similarly to Penix, when they blitzed Mac, he did not have a lot of time, and I just was wondering, like, okay, what is why I almost wondered if they mirrored kind of what the 49ers were trying to do. I wonder if the Niners would have even this might have been like a 10-10 game, but that is kind of Monday morning defensive coordinator in the game, or Sunday night. Game has only been over for an hour, but it was just something that I was kind of watching because I was just like, these teams are kind of similar. They're one player dominant. Bijan versus CMC. That was kind of the focus of the Sunday night telecast. But the Niners, and maybe this is a Shanahan thing, maybe this is a Kittle thing, they were able to get CMC going. And on the flip side, the Falcons weren't able to get their run game going enough to where it could open things up for Penix and Drake London. Because Drake London, I'm deathly afraid of this dude just getting loose with some wiggle and breaking plays, and they kind of had that in check. So I was really surprised. But yeah, I mean, it's just whatever the game plans were, it's kind of easy for me to go, I wonder if they should have done this, but I don't know. I think that maybe there's where we talked about earlier, where the coaching does matter in those situations.
I don't think it was a stellar performance from Raheem Morris or Zach Robinson. I don't think they strive, because I thought one of the big keys coming into the game was going to be their ability to run outside on us, with the combination of just how the lack of production we've gotten from our defensive linemen. They showed some signs of life today. I'll give them that. And then the combination, with Fred being gone. And again, Tatum Bethune stepped up and had I can't imagine that. I imagine they're over the moon with that performance, because I could not even imagine him playing as well as he did. But I thought that they had a real advantage based on our statistical profile coming into the game and their statistical profile running the ball outside in
Mm-hmm.
particular. I didn't know how we were going to stop that. But they didn't. I don't know. It seemed like they were trying to run it at us instead of like trying to take advantage of the defensive line in a way that I don't, because based on their statistical profile, that's not what they do. They are an outside zone team.
Mm-hmm.
That is what they are. And I just think we are I thought we would be food for that kind of attack, but it never came. And then, like you say, it was they did not sell out the way we did. And what came to pass was, they showed the stat of the on off splits of George on the field, off the field in terms of running the ball. But as we talked about last week, came to pass is that when you make George a sixth lineman, he had 2 targets. So I mean, we won the game, and that's the most important thing. But I'm always frustrated when that is our answer, because he is such a weapon um in the pass game. And if you want to talk about Christian's usage and his touches, I think that one of the ways that you alleviate, in my opinion, you alleviate that pressure is not by giving Brian Robinson the ball more necessarily. It's putting in the ball in the hands of, George and, BA when he comes back. That you and I guess to a lesser extent, or whatever, we'll see. But I would imagine that the plan would be Ricky Pearsall would be somebody you would hope that would work himself into that conversation of somebody who is a reliable target, and that is how you get away from um Christian and 30 touches a game is by spreading it around and not giving, for me, if you tell me eh, that the way that we're going to decrease Christian's usage is to give Sky Moore and Brian Robinson the ball more, I'm going to say, why the hell would we do that? I'd rather the ball be in his hands
You know what
30
though?
times.
Sky Moore on a bubble screen once a game is kind of
That
creative
was
and
that,
kind of
that was
nice.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I said that. I said that on purpose because he did have a nice little play today. That's probably like the longest, the longest play in his career. But yeah, it is. I am not one of the 49er fans who is clamoring for CMC to touch the ball less. Um, in lieu of having answers. I don't believe that we're better off just giving the ball to anybody rather than having it in his hand, because he is just so dynamic
Yeah.
when we give him the ball that and if we can do it in the receiving game. I thought it was interesting that Kyle said something that I've been saying for 2 years, is that Christian could definitely be a slot receiver
Oh
if
yeah.
if that is something he chose to do.
He had over
Um,
200 yards of offense today.
yeah, he is amazing. So I hope we can put to bed this um lost a step nonsense. I think there are a lot of reasons that we haven't been running the ball the way that we have in the past. I don't think any of them have to do with his ability to do it. And I think tonight, and again, I guess I don't want to overstate that, because maybe it was just the fact that the Falcons stink
Yeah.
defending the run. And then I guess Diablo being out of there was a contributing factor. But we all got injuries. I know I'm not feeling sad or sorry for anybody and their injury situation.
Your guy Brendel was out of there early tonight.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see the numbers, but I didn't see anything atrocious from Matt Hennessy. So that, I don't know, that might be something that just that time was due, and maybe it's just injury will um let that, and it's giving Matt Hennessy an opportunity. And if he can play well, because it's one of those things with Brendel, when you look at his numbers, they're good. He's like the seventh rated, in PFF. He's like the seventh rated center in the league. But that's the thing, the numbers don't tell the story, because if you watch him, there are 4 or 5 plays every game where it is just a shit show. And it's like, it's hard to when you're dealing with people who just like look at the box score or just look at PFF, it's hard to argue with them when they start spouting all these numbers where his metrics look good. But bro, did you watch the game? Did you watch that play where he just kind of let Levante David tackle CMC? If he just falls down in front of him on this screen, he's still running. But no, he just ushered him and said, "Oh, here you go, sir," and let the guy make the play. That happens with him 4 or 5 times a game, but somehow the numbers come out good in the wash, which is frustrating. I don't know. John Chapman is somebody who is on that. We don't agree often, but he's on that train too. That deliver me from the Jake Brendel numbers. He's not good. I don't care what at this point. I don't care what the numbers say. He is just not a. He is a detriment more than he is a positive.
So we like giving nicknames on this show. I think we should call Hennessy, just call him the Brown.
I love it.
Let's look at on the defensive side a little bit, because I think early on, there's a little bit of bend but don't break. There was a little bit of Penix making a bad decision to intentional ground the football late in the first half, which took them at least out of a field goal possibility. But this was really the first game where Bryce Huff kind of got cooking, and some of it was because the Falcons just had to be super pass heavy coming from behind a little bit there, and so he got to play a lot more. But he was cooking whoever that right tackle was, and they were even trying to bring in a running back to chip, and it didn't matter. He had a sack. He had he caused a what we thought was a Penix fumble, but it turned out to be in incompletion. But he looked fast tonight, and that was really the first time so far this season where you're like, okay, there is some, that he's not Nick Bosa, obviously, but him just being on the field was a positive for their pass rush. And I think they kind of keyed off of it a little bit, because you could see Penix, because he's coming from the blind side, and Penix was like quickly going through his stuff, knowing that, I don't have a ton of time here. So I thought Bryce Huff really set the tone for them, especially in that second half.
Yeah, he is. Again, I am not. It's not. It sounds disparaging, but it's not. He is. He's a situational player,
Mm-hmm.
and if you can put him in an advantageous situation, he can be dominant. The thing of it is you like you said, they know they can by his usage that if it's not an obvious passing down, he can be a liability. If the run is an option, you probably don't want him out there. If coverage is an option, you probably don't want him out there. You want him out there he does one thing well. It's he's a one trick pony, but the trick is a really good trick. So
Yeah.
I don't see that as a negative. That's fine. If somebody who's a good 3-point shooter, we don't trip on the fact that his post up game is weak. I mean, but that's not what he's here for. He's not, and that's how I feel about Bryce Huff. He's not here to play the run. He's not here to pass cover. He's here to rush the passer. And our job or Salah's job is to willfully get us in a position where the game script dictates, like they did today. The game script dictated that they could just sit Bryce Huff out there and rush the passer, because you really, at a certain point, once you got up 2 scores, with 8 minutes left, you're not really concerned about the run anymore.
Yeah.
That's just, that's really not what they're going to be doing. So you could just get him out there and you had him in a position that was super advantageous to him. And like you just said, my brother was like, "Who the hell is that? He is fast." And yeah, he looked really good. And I was like, "Yeah, that dude, he played for the Eagles last year. He was inactive in the Super Bowl." It's like, damn, well, I don't know. Tonight he looks I don't know about any of that, but tonight he looks really good. And he did. He really did.
So, do you think now we talked about this last week? You lose Bosa and you lose Warner. You probably don't want to really make a move unless the team really bandies together and they go on a little bit of run before this trade deadline. It's this game wasn't in any way an ass kicking to me. Like maybe it did get there a little bit in the end, but I didn't see this as like the Niners just running away with the game. I saw it as they finally got to play the kind of football that Kyle wanted to play, which is 30, 39, or I think it was 39 runs, or let me see, I have it here. I don't know why I'm guessing. It's
Yep,
39
39. You
runs
hit it
and
right in the head.
26 passes. So that is what Kyle wants to do.
Hmm.
And he was able to do that, getting some personnel back, some of his Falcons defense, like you said. At what point do you go, we kind of have to reward these guys for playing their asses off and beating the teams in front of them? Now they could go next week and struggle against Texans and we see the Rams again soon. So, maybe 5-2 isn't going to stay 5-2. Maybe it's 5-4, 6-4 soon thereafter. But still, you have to think that if this team gets on a little bit of a run, maybe you do bring in somebody just to go, hey, we believe a little bit. What do you think would have to happen for them to make even a small move to bring somebody in?
I think it would have to look like it looked it against Tampa, because I am kind of on the opposite side of that, is that I believe that this gives us an opportunity to see what we've got with these young guys. Let's see what Tatum Bethune can do.
He led the team
I
in
am
tackles today with 10.
I don't understand. Again, I'm not like the typical Niner fan. I'm not making Nick Martin an all pro, but I am interested that that you know I am it's interesting to me that Luke Gifford um has more reps this season than he does. And what is the reason for that? Why is, now that he was active, why is Curtis Martin or Curtis Robinson? Okay, maybe because Curtis Robinson is a vet. Okay, that's fair, I guess. But it's just like, what does he have to do that he is not doing to get reps? Because I'm not saying that I think that you're punting. I don't necessarily think you're punting on the season to decide that, rather than going and trading for somebody. Now look, what I would say is, if you decide that you need a linebacker, I'd rather sign somebody like Eddie Kendrick than trade anything. I just don't think that we are in a position at this point, with the depth and the talent on this roster, to be just willy-nilly trading draft picks for players who you don't believe are in your future. Like, for example, I would never do a deal, even if they were willing. I'd never do a deal for Trey Hendrickson. As good a player as he is 31, going to be 32. He's looking for more money. I doubt that he would be in the 49ers long-term plans. So I don't advocate for giving the type of draft capital that you'd have to give to get somebody like that for a rental. I just wholeheartedly disagree with that. But if you could get somebody like, another name that's being thrown about is like Kayvon Thibodeau, again, I don't know why the Giants would trade him, but if they were, he is, you know, in his 4th year.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have a 5th-year option, but he is young enough that if you decided to sign him, he's somebody who he's young enough that he could be on Brock's timetable. He
Yeah.
could be he could be here in the future. If you can make a deal for somebody like that, I'd be definitely open to it. But I'm at a especially after tonight, I am more emboldened in that, hey man, let's just see what these guys can do. Let's see um if they can play. The young guys, I don't think that they know enough to be um calling for. Now I guess where the clamoring could come is from the offensive side when you got guys like Christian and Brock, and those guys um might want to see some help over there. But not if these guys are performing the way they are now. But then I guess maybe it would not be surprising to me for veterans to be like, we kind of know that some of these are scheduled wins, and if we are really trying to do something in the playoffs, that it's going to be a different deal when if we have to go to Detroit or Green Bay or play the Rams down there in the in the play or play any of the Eagles, playing these good teams. It's not going to be the same as
Mm-hmm.
beating up on the Falcons and the
Yeah, for
Saints.
sure.
And so again, all the credit for beating the guys in front of you, because ultimately that's all you can do. But if if your team starts to get the feeling that maybe there's something special going on here, you'd probably want to have a few more bullets in the chamber,
Mm-hmm.
other than, but we're just gonna scheme up these blitzes, and then Bryce Huff. You would like to get Bryce Huff some help, I would think, if you're moving forward. So it's going to be interesting to see these next 2 or 3 weeks how we play and how that plays into whether or not we do anything trade wise.
So like I mentioned, Bethune had 10 tackles, and he led the team by a wide margin. The next highest player, as far as tackles was concerned, was Malik Mustafa, who had 6, and he was helping out, blowing up plays in the run game. He had a few problems over there with Kyle Pitts, who's just so giant. Like,
Yeah.
you could just throw him the ball up for grabs a little bit near the sideline, and you'll be fine. Almost like I know that he's been a little bit of a disappointment for like fantasy football freaks, but
Hmm.
man, he seems like he could be so strategic for them, like like as a third down monster or something. I don't know. I don't watch enough
Yeah.
Falcons football to know, but
Hmm.
watching how they used him early on against the Niners, I was like, yeah, it's almost like when you single him on a DB, it looks like it's easy money.
It's
But
unfair. It's
yeah,
unfair. It's like he could like post him up almost.
yeah,
It's
that's what they were
really
saying. He's like, yeah, it's like trying to guard a power forward with a guard. Um,
right.
and so also just some other things on the defensive end. When it came to sacks, the Niners got 2 sacks, one by Bryce Huff, one by Sam. We just call him Sammy O last year because we didn't
Hmm.
want to mess up that last name. Tackles for loss. Tatum had 1, Bryce Huff had 1, D Winters had 1, Sam O had another. They still do not have they did not intercept a pass.
It's a
So
record, right?
yeah, that is
14 games is a record.
that is a problem. Um, and quarterback hits, Chase Lucas and Alfred Collins also had 1 late chase on that blitz. So, they kind of they just had a really solid game plan, and they didn't really make too many mistakes. Like, there were a couple guys getting loose in the secondary when they were defending against the pass, like almost like you're just wondering, why are these guys so wide open? But they just kind of let Penix do the things that they knew he was going to be good at, and then stuff that they thought he wasn't going to be good at, he wasn't good at it. I think it was kind of interesting because I don't watch college football. I know you're a college football guy.
Mhm.
I liked a lot of what I saw from Penix. There were a couple of things though that I don't know if it was a fear. I don't know. I don't know. It doesn't seem like the Niners were beating him up very much. He got hit a few times, but some of those late throws on that last drive just to people's feet and stuff. I was like,
Mm.
okay. That he was not happy with that pressure. And then just that intentional grounding play was not a smart one. But he's a young quarterback who lost an entire year last year, and so he's kind of learning on the fly. But there are things that at like his arm strength on some of those passes, like man, he's gonna
Crazy.
break somebody's fingers. But what did
Yeah.
you think about Penix, and what did you think about him before he came into the league?
I thought he was going to be a good player, and the fact that he was older, I was anticipating it being kind of like a Bo Nix type situation where um, you could give him specific things to do, and trust that he's kind of a grown up and that he could do them. And he's a little wilder than I thought he would be. To be, had to have played, 6 years of college football. You kind of expect those guys to come in and be a little bit more stable than
Mhm.
he has shown to be. But I think he's a good player. And I think that I definitely thought that late there was like some phantom pressure. I think those things were, the blitzes getting home really affected him, and that
Yeah.
he didn't really trust what he was seeing, when they would, come up and drop back. I think that frustrated him,
Yeah.
um, which was good. The thing I don't know, man. I think that in both of those games against um Shanahan Tree guys, both against McVay and Morris, I thought that 4th down call was I mean, I think that was, you know, that was a very, very important call. Not taking the 3 there, changed I think it changed the way the whole end of the game sequence plays out. It plays out a lot differently if, and it gives the 49ers a lot more cushion,
Mhm.
knowing that they weren't in a position where they could lose the game.
Yeah.
The Falcons could come back and possibly tie the game, but they're at home. You aren't, I don't think it I think it changes the way Kyle is able to call that last drive, um, knowing that, they had that lead in hand like that. I just thought that was you got to take the points there,
Well,
and I
that
get
call was kind of interesting because again, it's a Bijan led team, and they decided to throw the ball there, and
and
Chase Lucas
Dion
almost
wasn't
took
even
that.
on the field.
Yeah, Chase Lucas almost took that thing to the house. By the way,
Yeah,
should have that should have been a touchdown. But it almost was like, and the Niners were similar on a 3rd and 1 where they gave the ball to Juice instead of like of all times not give the ball to Christian. It's almost like they outsmart themselves sometimes, probably because they're trying to they believe that the other side knows what's coming, and so they want a surprise. But I thought I was like, man, the second he dropped back to pass, like attention kind of alleviated. Even before the pass came out, I was like, oh gosh, thank you. That's
hmm
not the thing I was worried about. If you make that
yeah,
play, you make that play hat tip.
right.
But yeah, no, I think you're right. Those 2 games, you could look at them coming down to that play, and the Niners make the play, and the Rams don't, and the Niners make the play here, and the Falcons don't. So let's look forward to next week. The Niners play the Houston Texans. Now, is Houston?
Another family affair.
Yeah, did Houston have a bye this week?
Yes.
Okay, so they're going to be as fresh as you can be in the NFL. And Houston right now, their record sits at 2-3. So they they have this weird thing because when it comes to points for and points against, they're a plus 47. Yet they've lost more games than they've won. But they have won 2 in a row. They started the season 0-3, so they're playing better. And the Niners have to go there cross country early game, not cross country, mid country, early game for the Niners in Houston. It's going to be without if Brock does not play. I think we will probably see a little bit more of a game plan like Tampa Bay in how they attacked Mac Jones. Houston plays tomorrow. Sorry, Shelvin has a note here. He says they play
Oh,
tomorrow.
okay. Yeah, there are 2 games tomorrow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
there are 2
totally
games
forgot about
tomorrow.
that.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
So
Mhm.
they will have a
Okay.
short week. So that kind of changes what I was just about to say, which is being at home and having some time off is kind of set up for victory there. But it's a little bit different when you got to play Monday and then play Sunday. So I think that might not to say that the Niners are going to walk in there and stomp them, but that kind of bodes well a little bit for you, especially if the Seahawks play them well and it's a close, tough fight. But I just, it's one of those things where because I'm not quite sure how good the 49ers are, I can't really circle any of these games. Like when we look at them, I go, yeah, I feel like they're better than this team, but without Brock, without BA, without Pretty Ricky, I just don't know. And, you had mentioned George Kittle earlier, and George Kittle not being involved at all in the passing game. George on the broadcast said, well, they'd interviewed him before. He basically said that he's out of shape without saying that he's out of shape. And that,
Which makes sense.
yeah, because he hasn't played. And, him being out of shape is a little bit different from the rest of us being out of shape. What he means is like physically,
Football
like
shape. Mhm.
football shape to play an intense football game. But he said what he will do is he'll be able to kind of lock in and just kind of go crazy a little bit. But I do wonder if it just like one of the reasons maybe he wasn't involved so much in the passing game was just that they didn't want his wind to be nuts, running 10, 15 yards downfield a lot. But that could be different, right? In the next game. In the next game, as he kind of gets back into shape, and you're gonna need him if the run game isn't as good as it was today. Because if Christian is not busting out 5 and 6 yard runs every time, then you're gonna have to open it up a little bit, which leaves Mac open to the pass rush pressure. And then now you have Kittle and CMC as your safety valves because you're not really throwing the ball downfield to your receivers. And Demarcus Robinson, Mac was like, okay, I just need to throw one of these things on a 3rd and short, I think. And Demarcus Robinson goes right through his hands, and Mac was like, all right, I can't do this anymore. I'm just going to take the short stuff. But yeah, I think there's, it's just the fact that I just don't know how good this team is. So I don't know what to expect going into Houston, even if Houston is not maybe the same team they were the last 2 years. I think I look at every game sort of as a struggle at this point.
I'm looking at the standings, and it's like this has to be a mistake. They've allowed 61 points. That's bananas.
Yeah. Yeah.
They are leading in points allowed by a ton. I mean, everybody else is in triple digits.
Yep. I
That's
think the next
crazy.
2 teams are the Rams and the Seahawks at 117.
Yeah. That
They also don't
the
score
Rico
the football though.
Right,
that's the problem.
exactly. That's the other problem.
But by the way, the
Ryans is a beast.
The Bengals have only given up about 160 more points than the Texans.
No,
I
no
think the
big
Bengals
deal.
are giving up the most. Yeah, that is incredible, right? Like if you look at their points for and points against, it's insane what they're able to do. And so more than likely to go into Houston, you're going to have to win a rock fight of a football game, and they're not going to run past you either. But it's going to be one of those close games, and they're going to, it's
Another
going to
one of
be
those like we were just talking about with the Falcons and the Rams.
yeah,
One
mano
of
y
those
mano.
things
You
where
guys, you know us, we know you, and
right. So we're it's right for us out overthinking and outsmarting ourselves. Like we would do this, but they probably know that we're going to do this. So I'm going to do this because So you find yourself you know overthinking things because of the familiarity. That's going to be a very very interesting um game.
do you
I'm looking forward to that.
do you think that coaches look at situations because Saleh is like the hot coach on the Niners and he gets the Jets job. And then he gets replaced by D'Amico. Then D'Amico is the hot coach, gets the Texans job. And Saleh is fired. And D'Amico, I don't know. Shelvin says D'Amico's on the hot seat, but it's not like playing in New York and just being awful. But like, do you think Saleh looks at that scenario and is like, do you think he's happy for D'Amico, or do you think he's like, I got to beat that guy so that the teams, when it comes to next year, they know that I'm still the ace guy, and he was underneath me, like I'm the man still. I wonder if they think about it like that competitively because there's so few jobs in the NFL.
I would think it's weird that because it generally when you get a job, it's because it stinks. I would think if I was somebody like Salah, I would be but it's a trick bag. I was gonna say I would be very choosy for my second job, but
Mm-hmm.
you really can't be choosy because there are only 32 of them. So
That man has like
and it
10 kids too.
right,
Got a lot
well,
of mouths to feed.
and it gets to a point where what again, I don't know what in coaching circles, because I mean, I guess it was pretty bad at the Rams, but it's kind of interesting with the regard that the league holds Steve Spagnuolo. It's interesting that he just never got another opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think the Jet situation was so putrid that if Salah gets far enough away from if he goes 2 or 3 coaching cycles, he might find himself in a situation where the stench of the Jet situation just stays on him and he's just not able to regardless of because like Spags, I mean he's a 3-time champion now. You would think that I guess he's older too. I guess that kind of factors in. But hell, Fangio got a gig. Um, he got 2 gigs. You know, old. So I mean, I
Yeah.
don't know. It's just something that I think about is that you would want to be choosy about the job you take, but you just oftentimes don't find yourself in a position where you're able to. You saw where I guess the guy in with the Bears, he was the Detroit Lions OC. I guess
Mm-hmm.
he took one year. He just like said, "Nah, I'm good. I'm just gonna come back." But I don't know how many times you're able to do that. I
Yeah.
don't know how many times you can say, "Nah, I'm just gonna sit this one out." No, I'm gonna sit this one out. I just don't know, because my fear would be that I'd be having dueling fears. I don't want to take this bad job and not get an opportunity to show what I can do. But I also don't want to um, pass up a bunch of opportunities. And then 3 years from now, I'm like Bobby Slowick, and I was like the
Yeah.
hot coordinator for 5 minutes, and then the shit falls apart, and then nobody's calling anymore. So it's kind of a balancing act on um, taking one of the 32 or waiting for John Harbaugh or Nick Sirianni to shit the bed and taking over a juggernaut,
Yeah,
a sleeping giant.
like, I wonder if, Shanahan, they're in meetings all week and Shanahan just turns to Saleh and's like, when you left, D'Amico said, "You weren't really that good of a coach, man. Like, you need, you need to dial
I
up some
think
stuff this week." I wonder if he would
I
like.
think I would it would not, from what I've heard about that whole um ecosystem of the it would not surprise me at all if Kyle was that kind of shit stirrer amongst his peers. It would not surprise me at all.
Yeah, because it seems like there's a lot of competition, even, in who's in that whole thing. Like we read that book, the Mike Silver book,
Mhm.
last year about the whole
Mhm.
Shanahan tree and stuff.
Well,
It's
I
pretty
you
interesting.
speaking of the Shanahan tree, after the day, Mike McDaniel might be able to
Woo!
come back here and be a consultant, because I don't know how he survives today. That was awful. It seems I like that guy. So I am really it really saddens me to see what's going on there. It just
So
seems like
so how would you like to be Tua? You
oh,
basically call out your teammates for not showing up to meetings on time and not taking the job seriously, and then you get yanked out of the game the very next game.
yeah. Yeah, that's it. That is a very extremely toxic situation. I
Yeah.
don't. But I've heard down there that the organization really likes McDaniel, but I don't know. Can they continue to? Can I don't see how he can survive the season. That would be. I would have a lot of respect for Stephen Ross if he is able to take the pain of 10 more of these games and then clean house of, like Tua and everybody else, and give McDaniel another shot. That would be awesome. But I've just never seen that happen. I've never seen that happen. The coach is usually the first one
Yeah.
to have to who gets the bullet. And I would love
So
to have him back here. I say all that to say that I would love for him to I don't wanna see him fired, but I would love for him to be back in the building here.
yeah, I mean, it'd be a nice it'd be a nice safe landing for him for sure. And
Absolutely. And because I mean, I you even in their awfulness, you see like there are like 4 or 5 plays a game that you like, "This guy is brilliant." He is
mhm,
just such a good play designer and caller, and it's just in that shit show, it's just like going to waste. It's awful.
yeah.
He would be such a good addition to what we've got going here now. And I think he would help us because I'm starting to believe. I don't know. Yeah, I also look at our point differential and see that if we're like going into the game,
+7.
we were like going into the game, it was like our point differential and the Cardinals point differential like the same.
Yeah.
And so you have to take that with a grain of salt. But again, you can only play the teams in front of you. So I am past putting that holding that against them. They are winning these games, and there is something to be said for that. And I just it like you had brought the point up earlier, and I'm interested to see how they go about doing because I don't know the answer. Do you go all in
Mhm.
and strive to improve this roster, or do you just let the younguns get this experience and decide that it's not I don't see it as like punting on the season, but I think of it as I think if you just let these guys play and get this experience, that it would make us better off 2 or 3 years down the
Yeah.
road than going and
If this is
you
a
know
3-year run, if you look at it as a 3-year run based on the contracts, by year 2 or 3, these young players getting the reps, that by then that's where it would pay off.
right.
Um,
And I
so
don't want to give these reps to Arden Key. I don't want to trade a draft pick and be giving these reps to Arden Key because I just don't know, how that's going to move the needle at this point. Do we really? Are we better served giving Michael Williams reps to Arden Key? I don't. I don't know that is the case. I don't know that we're better off. Yeah, I just think we just need to let this young dude play.
mhm.
Is what I think that's how we would be better off. But what do I know? Um, but yeah, it'll be interesting.
It is not a bad thing to enjoy a 5-2 start.
Not at all.
There are only 3 teams who have 1 loss. There's no undefeated teams in the NFL this year. The Colts, the Packers, and the Bucks so far are the only teams with 1 loss. There's a lot of teams in the 49ers 5-2 range, 5-2, 4-2, where when you look at the point differential, it is not fantastic. So I think some of this is schedule stuff like the 49ers have had. And there are other teams that, you look at, you look at some of the other point differentials, and it's like the Colts, obviously they're the best with plus 92, but even like the Bills, like, are the Bills uh only as good as a plus 30? Well, they're also probably playing a lot better teams, so you have to look at it that way. But yeah, this is why the NFL does the scheduling this way. They want the bottom teams to play the bottom teams and have some opportunities to get some wins and maybe build on that and trade for players and try to make runs. And that's kind of where the Niners are right now. But I think if we fast forward 3 weeks from now, and if they are 6-3 or 7-2, then yeah, then you're like, okay, maybe this is something to look into as far as whether or not they're going to be heard from in the playoffs. And even if, again, to go back to what you just said, even if they are not a contender, which I don't think they're an actual Super Bowl contender, but getting those big game reps for these young players would be very beneficial as well, because they, the playing against, Atlanta, and I think they have Carolina coming up. Like, that's a little different than playing in prime time on week 19 or whatever. So I think it's just right now, the way that they're doing this is like best case scenario for all of those injuries that they have. And to say that they can do this with no BA, very little Brock, very little Bosa, and very little Fred. And if you could get to that level of where you're like 6-3 or 7-2 after 9 weeks, man, you can't ask for a better start to the season than that.
Because you have to balance it out with that part of the narrative because how you would like it because Seattle has basically played a similar schedule to what we've played. So and their point differential is like 50, 49. So that is what you'd want. If you're playing the Carolina and the Saints and the Falcons, that's what ideally you would like to be stomping those teams because
Mhm.
they're just objectively not very good teams. But when you um, balance the fact that the Niners have been they've beaten these teams, even if it's by 3 points, they've done it with a mass unit. So that
Mhm.
has to be factored in
Mhm.
that maybe if they were as healthy as the Rams, and again, everybody deals with injury. So that's not, but what we're dealing with here is not that. It's not. everybody deals with injuries. People, I mean, people around the league in national circles are like, damn, that is, it's um outside of the pale what we are dealing with here or have been dealing with here. And it looks like willfully things are looking up. George came back and I guess, it sounded positive about BA. What Brock what they were saying about Brock today did not sound positive.
No.
There's just really no timetable at this point. That is not that wasn't that because I hadn't heard that I just kind of thought it was week to week, but now it doesn't seem like they if
Yeah,
it could be
take
it could
Jordan Love and Parsons off of the Packers. Like,
yeah, I
it
mean that's
changes
what
the
we're
whole dynamic of their team.
right. So again, within that context, that is there a mitigation for the point differential? I think so. I mean, I think that if we were fully healthy or had a normal number of because the lost games we have is like bananas. It's not. It's just um it's almost like Houston's point differential. It doesn't look when you see it outlined, lined up, it doesn't look real. We just have so many more lost games than anybody else. It doesn't even look it looks like a typo.
Yeah.
So when you take that into consideration, I think you can't help but be happy with where they are,
Yeah.
but I am still not of a bully. I don't consider them, the Packers and the Lions and
No,
the,
those teams are
I know
a
they're
level
just
above for
better.
sure. Yeah.
They're just better. But
Yeah,
but
but
that
then the
doesn't mean
dream, right? The dream or how you look at sports is, okay, what happens when we get our guys back? At least the guys that are
right.
coming back. What happens when we get Brock, BA, and Ricky back? Can we get closer to those teams? I think the answer is yes, but you're still dealing with the young defense and the loss of your two best players. You can't
And
replace
you
those
and
guys.
I could trick myself into saying, it's a tournament, and once you get into the tournament, who knows? They get hot and there have been stranger things that happen. Other teams, maybe the injury luck switches, and you get to the playoffs, and the Eagles are banged up,
Yep.
well, we saw it last year with the Lions that they, were a juggernaut all the way through, and then by the time it ended the year, the attrition had just piled up to the point where they just couldn't anymore. So that is on the board. Other people could have injury, misfortune. We get healthy at the right time, and who knows? So yeah, it is not unrealistic to be hopeful. Um,
By the way,
yeah,
shout out to Matt Moses, who agrees with you. He says he wants the Brown at center. No more Brundle.
the Brown Center, I like it.
By the way, because Matt has in his avatar, he's got a Lakers thing, and it reminded me that as we end this, Warriors play the Lakers on Tuesday.
The NBA is back. That is crazy.
How high are you on this Warriors team at this point?
I am 2022 crazy high on it. That is what my hope is that when they have crazy injury luck and
Yeah.
that everybody else falls apart
Yeah.
and that there's a parade that I need to try to figure out a way to get to. But
Yeah,
that's I know.
they're the way that they're built, like they're going to have injuries, but you kind of think, if I could actually script this, if like, okay, they get in a good start, the first 30 games, they're like 20-10. And then, Steph gets his 5 games out of the way. And then Jimmy gets his 5 games, like after the All-Star break, you let Jimmy go on vacation to
Drake
heal.
gets his suspension.
Yeah, Drake gets that out of the
Jesus.
way. And then, like, they have like 48 wins and they're like the 5th seed and they're fully healthy and they're ready for the playoffs while, Oklahoma City has to deal with the disease of more and all that. So like there's a version where the Warriors may be able to do some stuff. The way that I'm looking at this season, I'm just going to watch every Steph Curry game possible. Like, I just don't want to stop watching that guy play because there's going to be a point where he's not going to be able to play anymore. Like, and Matt, as a Lakers fan, when has LeBron ever missed the beginning of the NBA season? He's dealing with sciatica, and that he's 4 years older than Curry, or 3 or 4 years older than Curry. Like, that's kind of what they're dealing with. So I'm like, oh man, I'm just gonna, every time Steph's on TV, I'm watching. I don't care. I gotta support my guy because at one point in the future he's gonna be gone, and then we're just gonna be like, remember when Steph? We're at that moment where it's like he's still doing Steph things, so we just got to pay attention.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, thank
when
you.
When you guys are back on?
Are
you guys doing anything pre-game, preseason?
No. So we did our last episode. We kind of previewed the roster and such, but we'll be back. Okay. We should be back on, I'm guessing, Wednesday. We'll probably do an episode on Wednesday. Actually, I haven't looked at the Warriors schedule because we try not to record when the Warriors play, so it'll either be Wednesday or Thursday. But yeah, so it'll be fun. And you got the 49ers going right now. Rod and I will be back. I think next week is a morning game, so if you're available in the afternoon, we can go live after that game. And the Giants are about to sign a new manager. I don't know if Brad and I will be back tomorrow, but possibly if they have a new manager, we will probably be back on Tuesday. His daughter has a birthday tomorrow, so he is unable to go. But we'll have some stuff in this feed. Warriors are back, Niners, Giants off season, Valkyries off season. It'll be we'll have some fun stuff. All right. Shout out to Robert Ramos, Shelvin, and Matt Moses hanging out in the chat. We will see you next week on this show after the Niners play the Texans. So for Rod, I am Double G. We will see you when we see you. Peace out.